William Milnor Roberts was an American civil engineer. As a young civil engineer involved in the construction of the Eads Bridge, the chief engineer of Northern Pacific Railroad, America's second transcontinental railroad, and president of the American Society of Civil Engineers scarcely 2 decades after its founding, Roberts was one of the most prolific and prominent civil engineer of his generation in the United States. Personal life. Roberts was born to Thomas Paschal and Mary Louise Roberts. He married Annie Gibson in June 1837. He married Adeline Beelan in November 1868. He had at least 9 children. Career. In 1826, he served as an assistant in survey and construction, Lehigh Canal, between Mauch Chunk, Pennsylvania and Philadelphia. From 1831 to 1834, he served as senior assistant engineer for the proposed Allegheny Portage Railroad, and general manager from 1834 to 1835. In 1837, he served as chief engineer, Lancaster and Harrisburg. He was in charge of construction of a 2-level lattice truss bridge across the Susquehanna River at Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. From 1834 to 1840, he was in charge of extensions of Pennsylvania State Canals, Bellefontaine and Indiana, Allegheny Valley, Atlantic and Mississippi, and Iron Mountain. From 1855 to 1857, he was chairman, commissioned to consider reconstruction of Allegheny Portage constructed railroads in Middle West. In 1865, he contracted to build Don Pedro Segundo, Brazil. In 1866, he proposed improvements to the Mississippi River at Keokuk, Iowa. Office of Ohio River Improvement. In 1866, he was the U.S. engineer in charge of improvement of navigation of Ohio River, established the Office of Ohio River Improvement at Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Eads Bridge construction. In 1868, he served as associate chief engineer in construction of Eads Bridge across Mississippi River at St. Louis. Northern Pacific Railroad. From 1869 to 1879, he was engineer-in-chief of the Northern Pacific Railroad. In 1878 to 1879, Roberts led the survey party that explored the Cascade Mountain passes for route location. In the process, for the railroad WHI, Mississippi River Jetty Commission. From 1879 to 1881, he was a member of the Mississippi River Jetty Commission and chief engineer, all public works in Brazil. He served as vice president of the American Society of Civil Engineers from 1873 to 1878, and as president in 1878. Works, Cumberland Valley Railroad Company, and Amp. Roberts, W.M. Report of William Milnor Roberts, chief engineer of the Cumberland Valley Railroad Company, made to the board on the 23 October, 1835. Philadelphia, J.C. Clark Printer. Harrisburg, Portsmouth, Mountjoy and Lancaster Railroad Company. And Amp. Roberts, W.M. Report of the chief engineer to the president and directors of the Harrisburg and Lancaster Railroad Company. Middletown, Pa. Harrisburg and Lancaster Railroad Company. Cumberland Valley Railroad Company. Second report of William Milnor Roberts, chief engineer of the Cumberland Valley Railroad Company, made to the board, the 29th of December 1836. Chambersburg, Pa. Hickok and Amp. Blood. OCLC number 84,618,930. Roberts also made a third report to the board in 1837. See OCLC number 950,908,210. Roberts, W.M., and Amp. Clark, J.C. Third Annual Report of W. Milnor Roberts, Chief Engineer of the Harrisburg and Lancaster Railroad Company, made to the Board, January 8, 1838. Philadelphia, printed by John C. Clark. Roberts, W.M. Report to the Board of Directors on the Sandy and Amp Beaver Canal. New Lisbon, Ohio. J. Wilkinson, printer. Roberts, W.M. Columbia Philadelphia Railroad and Amp, Pennsylvania. Report of W. Milnor Roberts, ESQ, on the survey of a route to avoid the Schuylkill inclined plane on the Philadelphia and Columbia Railroad, authorized by the Act of the 11th April 1848, entitled An Act to Provide for the Ordinary Expenses of Government, and Amp. C. Philadelphia. Publisher not identified. Roberts, W.M. Report on the preliminary surveys for the Bellefontaine and Amp, Indiana Railroad Company, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Printed by Johnson and Amp, Stockton. See also for Map of Railroad. Allegheny Valley Railroad Company and Amp, Haven, W.S. Report on the surveys of the Allegheny Valley Railroad. Read before the President and Board, July 26, 1853. Pittsburgh, printed by W.S. Haven, OCLC number 10,807,508. Roberts, W.M. Erie and Northeast Railroad Company and Amp. Constitution Book and Job Office. Report relative to the surveys of routes for the Pittsburgh and Erie Railroad. Read at a meeting of the stockholders of the Erie and Northeast Railroad Company at Erie, July 8, 1856. Erie, Penn. Printed at the Constitution Book and Job Office. Roberts, W.M. Improvement of the Ohio River. Pittsburgh. Published by order of the Board of Trade. Roberts, W.M. and Amp. J. Cook and Amp Co. Report on the present state and prospects of the North Missouri Railroad, upon examinations made for Messrs. J. Cook and Amp Co. by W. Milnor Roberts, Consulting Engineer, June 1866. Philadelphia, McLaughlin Brothers. Roberts, W.M. Report of W. Milnor Roberts, Consulting Engineer, to the President and Managers of the Erie Canal Company of Pennsylvania. Erie, Pennsylvania, Republican Print. Roberts, W.M. and Amp. J. Cook and Amp Co. Special report of a reconnaissance of the route for the Northern Pacific Railroad between Lake Superior and Puget Sound via the Columbia River. Philadelphia, J. Cook and Amp Co. ? Roberts, W.M. Flagg H. and Amp. Whitman, T.J. Preliminary report with reference to extension of the new Pittsburgh Waterworks, Northern Pacific Railroad Company. Roberts, W.M. and Amp. Joseph Meredith Toner Collection. Report of the Chief Engineer on the unfinished portion of the Northern Pacific Railroad, made to the President of the Company, April 27, 1874. New York, Evening Post Steam Presses. Roberts, W.M. Engineering, Transactions of the American Society of Civil Engineers, 1874, Volume 2, Issue 1, pg. 69-80. Philadelphia and Amp. Roberts, W.M. Report on the water supply for the city of Philadelphia, made by the Commission of Engineers appointed by the Mayor under the Ordinance of Councils, approved June 5, 1875. Philadelphia, E.C. Markley and Amp. Son, Printers. Roberts, W.M. Reminiscences and Experiences of Early Engineering Operations on Railroads, with special reference to steep inclines. Transactions of the American Society of Civil Engineers, 1878, Volume 7, Issue 1, pg. 197-215. Relatorio de W. Milnor Roberts, in genero chefe da Comissário Hidráulica sobre o exame de Rio S. Francisco, desde o mar ate acuta cachoeira de Pará para extensão de 2.122 km, Fito M. 1879–1880, Roberts, W. M. Roberts, W. M. Darby, O. A. and Amp. Sampaio, T. Rio de Janeiro, Typografia Nacional. Legacy. Milnor, North Dakota, was named after several individuals associated with the Northern Pacific Railroad. William Edward Milnor, the first telegrapher at the NP's Milnor Station, and William Milnor Roberts, the chief engineer of the railroad. Bibliography. Smalley, E.V., History of the Northern Pacific Railroad. New York, G. P. Putnam's Sons, accessed at the National Cyclopedia of American Biography. New York, James T. White p. 447. Nolan, E. W., and Amp. Roberts, W. M. Exploring the Northern Pacific Railroad Route. W. Milnor Roberts. Letters from the Expedition of 1869. M.A. University of Oregon, OCLC number 10282350. Lubetkin, M. John J. Cooks Campbell, The Northern Pacific Railroad, The Sioux, and the Panic of 1873. University of Oklahoma Press.